Welcome everyone, Costin here with my campaign guide for the Tomb Kings in Total War Warhammer Free Immortal Empires. The Tomb Kings are a powerful race in Warhammer Free, but they do have some severe drawbacks. Their armies cost no upkeep. The units that they recruit cost no money, but they do have unit caps dependent on the structures you do have in your empire. So if I move over here, each royal barracks gives me 4 capacity for Nehekar warriors, 6 capacity for skeletal archers, 2 for tomb guard, and 1 for tomb guard halberd. So if you want a full-on tomb guard army, you're gonna need to get a lot of regions and a lot of provinces and a lot of barracks over there. It isn't too big of an issue when it comes to it, actually. It works out, actually, in your favor, because you will be able to maintain larger armies of higher quality units than the vast majority of other factions of the game, even factions like the Warriors of Chaos or Vampire Counts, because, yeah, you have free units. You just need to increase those caps. You may need more territory, but you can get a lot of pretty powerful armies. Like, I've got several here. Now, I got Archon the Black, etc., even though the Tomb Kings can confederate via a mod that allows you to get legendary lords when their faction is killed. So for instance, killing Archon, I get the option to just recruit him, basically. Or if he dies in some other way, I get that option. Also applies to AI factions, so if, like, say, Belegar here had been wiped out, another Dwarven faction would have gotten Belegar, as well as his ghosts. Just a nice change. There's no specific mod I would necessarily recommend to the Tomb Kings, so maybe something for army capacity would help them out. I'm not sure if there is. I haven't even looked. Isn't too big of an issue, but it can be a frustration. It's not the issue of having too few armies, because you only start with 1 capacity for armies. It's rather what the cost is to increase it, because it can be very, very expensive to increase the number of armies you can have. By the way, the Tomb Kings are a powerful faction, have free armies, but they do have caps in how many armies, how many heroes, how many units they can have. And those are the drawbacks. What that means, though, in practice, is that they're pretty weak early on, especially Cetra. He's very weak early on, but once they get going, well, they can paint the map in their color. How much of the map? A lot of it. Like, if I look at diplomatic status, what you see in green is what I hold. What you see in blue are my vassals, not even allies, vassals. Because the Tomb Kings can vassalize many other factions, and I found it to be pretty easy to do so. Like, I vassalized this faction here in Bagar within the first few turns, though that was a mistake. Because they have a great pyramid that I need to win the campaign, the long campaign victory condition, because they have one of those pyramids over there. So I'm actually going to have to turn against them. And there can be issues with vassals, but all the same, you can vassalize, and that can help you out a great deal with your economy, with getting more armies, because you have limited number of armies. Your vassals don't. You can literally just feed gold to your vassals, and they can help you out in a lot of ways. But they are limited and restricted, but they also have advantages because of free recruitment. For instance, any Tomb King will be able to increase their army capacity by quite a bit. Like, for instance, these guys, like this minor faction, has 4 armies, right? And although they're not going to be able to recruit much, they will be able to get skeletal spearmen, a couple of tomb guards, archers, a couple of units, but mainly skeletons. Well, 4 armies of skeletons showing up at your doorstep is an unpleasant thing all the same. Regardless of how easy those skeletons might be to deal with in a battle, there's still a hell of a lot of set skeletons. So there are pros, there are cons to playing the Tomb Kings. But how do you play them? Let's start with the Legendary Lords. Now, to talk about the Tomb Kings Legendary Lords, we can talk about the power they have, their starting position. Both of those things are going to matter a great deal, and how difficult their campaigns can be. Cetra is the most powerful of all of them. He does get some substantial benefits in growth, construction time. He also gets a benefit in casualty replenishment, and he also buffs Tomb Guard and Tomb Princes. He's got a lot of power behind his army, and he is the most powerful combatant. However, he's also the hardest to play and has the worst starting position. Those, by the way, like if you have a bad start position, you don't necessarily have a hard campaign, but he does have a hard campaign because of his start position. Camry is a great province, but Camry also is exposed on all sides because it's smack dab in the middle of the Southlands over here. He's got Skarbrand to the north, Forik to the east, Manfred to the south, Volkmar to the southwest, and Arkon to the west. Having Forik, Skarbrand, Manfred, and Volkmar as neighbors from the start of your campaign is unpleasant, especially when they don't particularly like you, and they don't. You might be able to make some deals, I suppose, with Forik, like I did in my campaign. You can make deals with Forik, though it's just as possible that he ends up declaring war against you. Skarbrand will almost certainly declare war against you at one point or another, and yeah, he's not pleasant to deal with. And Cetra suffers especially because of the limited armies that Tomb Kings have, because he only starts with one army capacity when he really should start with more, because given the territory he's got, the vast amount of territory he has to defend, the vast borders he has to defend, he really needs that extra army from the very start, and that can be a major problem for him. If you get him going, he will have a lot of power, especially because of the growth. But until that point, it is going to be an issue. Hardest start, worst starting position of all of them. It doesn't work very well playing with Cetra early on, but if you stick through it, it can be very, very powerful. Then you've got Katep. Now, Katep starts in a miserable starting position, in the sense that to win the campaign as any of the Tomb Kings and Legendary Lords, unless they've changed that with 2.2, but to win the campaign as any Tomb Kings, you basically need to make your way to the Southlands. He starts way over here. To get from here to the Southlands is a long journey of pain and suffering, and a lot of the terrain here is not favorable to the Tomb Kings. It doesn't really matter that much for the Tomb Kings, because money is not as important for them. Well, it is important, but because they play no upkeep, they will be swimming in cash, even if they generate far less money. What someone mentioned to me is that it's much better to play Katep and just go through the sea lanes and go through Cafe to reach home. But it is a journey. Let's put it like that. It would be a genuine journey of pain and suffering if you're playing Katep, just because of his start position. It's not hard, however. Let's be clear on this. He has a lot of power, and his starting position is actually relatively safe, and he can make a lot of deals with the factions surrounding him. This is not the Cetra situation, far from it. In fact, as Katep, you're going to be dominating the factions that surround you. The problem he has is of a different nature. He has a strong position, but because the terrain is unfavorable, he can't really expand around him. And he still needs to make his way to the Southlands to win his campaign. Another issue, by the way, with Katep is that a lot of the books, even if you go to Cafe with him, a lot of the books are going to be in Lustria and in Agrond. And that can be an issue to acquire them if you are playing him. So, not a hard campaign. He's got a lot of power, magical power in particular, because he does get benefits to Lich Priests. He can get a lot of Lich Priests in his campaign. He gets a benefit to rights, character experience, campaign movement range, but yeah, he does have a lot of issues just being able to win the campaign. Not necessarily in survival. Cetra has a lot of survival issues, but just being able to succeed in the campaign, because he's going to start way further away than anyone else, and he's going to have to make his way to where everyone else is anyway. Even if he didn't have campaign victory conditions, there's still a lot of special Tomb King structures right in the Southlands, so you want to make your way there, and he's very, very far away from that. Khalida, she is the second best legendary lord of the Tomb Kings, behind Cetra in terms of pure power, but from a practical standpoint, she is way above Cetra. Why is that? Well, she's not going to have the same kind of army power that Cetra has, though she does get the significant ammo benefit. The research benefit also helps out. Diplomacy also helps out. She won't compare pure army power to Cetra, but here's the thing: Cetra starts in the middle of Southlands. She starts to the east, basically, of Southlands, and she's got in this nice pocket where if an enemy wants to attack her from the north or the west, or the east, they either have to cross the sea or go through choke points, meaning that Khalida has a very, very easy time early on in her campaign. She does have to fight some vampire counts. That's annoying, especially on Legendary, because they just get a swarm of bloody units to throw against you. But once she does that, once she wins that situation, she is in a pretty good situation. Especially, she benefits from the diplomacy benefit. She benefits from research. I'll talk about the research tree, but 15% research benefit is a pretty significant affair for a Tomb King Legendary Lord, because to increase your army capacity, you need to research stuff. Largely, you need to research it. So don't view it like, oh, she's getting army benefits or economy benefits. No, what Khalida is getting is access to more armies faster than most of the other Legendary Lords. And overall, she will have more access to armies and buffs to units than anyone else. Though she is behind the best Legendary Lord overall. Like, as I said, Cetra has the potential to be good, but then you've got Arkan the Black, who is not just about potential. He is the strongest starting Legendary Lord of the Tomb Kings. Like, his start position is very easy compared to Cetra. He has an extra army capacity that, frankly, he doesn't need at all. Like, compared to Cetra, like, between the two of them, Cetra needs it far more than he does. Because I guess they give him that army capacity because a lot of the Tomb Kings don't particularly like him. But it doesn't really work out. You don't really care about that. I mean, even if you ended up fighting every single faction around you, you could still win as Arkan. Just because he has more narrow borders to defend than Cetra does, and that helps you a lot. But on top of that, he gets access, like, whereas Cetra might spend a lot of his early campaign struggling to just get more than skeletal warriors or spearmen, Arkan has a lot of things: ghouls, Velbats, Hex Wraiths, right? He has access to certain units that only he has access to: Direwolves, Bats, Hex Wraiths, and Crypt Ghouls for free. And he gets buffs to those units. These are not vampire counts, Direwolves or Hex Wraiths online. No, he gets faction-wide benefits with his special skill tree for those units, making them more powerful. And it's very easy to increase the capacity. So not only does Arkan have an extra army, but the army he gets early on are actually the best early game armies that the Tomb Kings have access to. The Tomb Kings are strong late game regardless of who you're playing with, but they are weak early game. Arkan is the strongest of all of them early game, and he's far stronger than his neighbors. Because look at his situation. He starts with 2 settlements over here. Every other Legendary Lord of the Tomb King starts with 1. He starts with 2 settlements. He has 2 armies from the very start. He takes control of an entire province turn 1. I think only Trog of Norska has that capacity. He takes control of an entire province turn 1. And then what do? Well, you can go smash Rapans, take all her territory to add it to your own, or you can vassalize her. I'll get into some vassalization discussion in just a bit, but suffice to say, there are ways to cheese it. By giving factions territory, along with a huge pile of cash, or by giving them valuable territory, or what they perceive as being valuable territory, it can be very easy to vassalize factions. I'm not sure if Arkan could vassalize Rapans. I've done it as Cetra very easily, but I haven't really played the campaign as Arkan. But he is incredibly strong and able to just decimate everyone around him and get far easier access to the endgame power that the Tomb Kings have. Like, if you are just a starting player with the Tomb Kings, Arkan is your best choice, by far and away. Followed by Khalida, followed by Katep, and finally Cetra. Cetra might be the most powerful overall if you're talking about late game potential, because that growth is actually going to help him out a lot in his late game. But he does struggle early game, mid game. He's the slowest to grow of all of them. In that sense, because he just starts in the worst possible position. The other ones start in a much better position. Now that I've talked about the legendary lords, let's talk about regular lords and heroes. Hero choices, what should you focus on, how should you level them up? Well, the Tomb Kings only have one lord choice, the Tomb King. The Tomb King is an okay lord. They're a melee lord, they can get War Sphinx, it's a pretty good mount. They're a pretty decent melee combatant, though they certainly won't stand up to some demons, warriors of chaos, or anything like that, but they will do a pretty decent job. When you talk about leveling lords, here's what I would do for pretty much every faction. When you start a campaign, or when you get the lord level 1, 2, 3, all that, you spend 1 point to get Root Marcher, if you have it available, some don't, but get 5% campaign movement range, get the experience from the first red line skill, and then get 3 points into whatever unit is going to make up the mainstay of your army. Maybe even 6 points if you want to buff multiple units. So for instance, this particular army here has a lot of Tomb Guard, so what I've gotten is the Sun Scorched Bones, which buffs Nehekara Warriors, Tomb Guard, Skeletal Warriors, Spearmen. I'll talk about the army composition in just a second, but generally this is the skill you're going to want to go for. Unless you're using a specific army that it will not utilize those units. So for instance, over here to the south, what I'm doing here is I'm recruiting an Ushapti stack. And so this lord is a unique Tomb King lord, unlocked for research, but he's basically a Tomb Prince with just some unique stats. In his case, he's going to buff Ushaptis by his special trait. You unlock him for research. But he's also, but with him, I've gotten the arrows, and I've also gotten the upgrade to buff Ushapti. I've gotten arrows because it buffs artillery. I generally don't use skeletal archers as units, but I do use screaming skulls and also bone giants. This army is not going to have bone giants, but it is going to have artillery once I get the capacity for those screaming skulls. I had it higher. I got rid of some capacity by giving territory to my vassals. I'm going to have to get it back up. Or because I'm using a mod, specifically the Warband upgrade mod, the unit upgrade mod, I can just recruit some skeletal archer chariots, for which I have a great deal of capacity, and upgrade them to Screaming Skulls catapults. Maybe I'll actually just do that. Mods can be good for Tomb Kings, though one mod that is absolutely missing that they could use would be a mod to either give you more army capacity, just a bit, not an enormous amount, but it does hurt their late game potential since they are going to have limited armies. But anyway, you upgrade whatever unit you're going to use. 3 points, 6 points, and then you generally go with the melee tree. Mounts will unlock automatically, and then you have a special skill tree for the Tomb Kings over here at the top. Now, generally, this will buff certain units. Like the first one will buff Tomb Guard. This is give you a hero recruit rank for Tomb Princes. This is the one you're probably going to have on the vast majority of lords, because the vast majority of lords may be using Tomb Guard. And certainly the hero recruit rank is very beneficial. The one I've gotten for this army, though, is the Ushapti one. So you get whatever skill you get whatever skill here, dependent on the army you're going to use. Since you're going to use the Ushapti, I get the Ushapti skill. There's one for overall casualty replenishment, though it's not too great. And missile strength for Casket of Souls is okay, but the thing is, Casket of Souls is incredibly limited. You can only recruit one once every 15 turns in your campaign, so you won't have a lot of them running around in your campaign. Like if the right gave you 2 of them, that would be different, but I don't think this one trait is worth it, because while Casket of Souls are great, sacrificing the benefits you get for Tomb Guards or Shopties is not that great. And even the missile strength for archers and stalkers wouldn't be that great. When it comes to attrition, it could be good, since this army, it is also going to be beneficial for this particular army, because I'm at war here with Kairos. Kairos managed to take the entirety of the south in this campaign. He wiped out Oxyatl and all the minor demonic factions in the Southern Cast Wastes. And now myself and my vassals were fighting a war against them. Like Krokgar, he sent several stacks here. Though they've largely been wiped out, he's recruiting more units. But he sent several units several armies to take this particular province. I'm just gonna send this army to help deal with the situation and Ushap the army. It's a bit overkill, but once it's done, this army is gonna head out to Illustria as well. If I continue this particular campaign. And yeah, once you're satisfied with your army skills, generally I'd say 3 points or 6 points, special skill over here, and then you buff the melee combat ability. Though I would not prioritize that with the Tomb Kings, either Legendary Lords or regular Lords. For the Legendary Lords, most of them except Khalida are casters, though I wouldn't have a casting tree, though they also have a melee tree unless we're talking about Katep. For Katep you get the army skills, then you focus on either the magical skill tree or the melee skill tree. The only one you get pure magic is Katep, because if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't have melee tree. But for Cetra, for Arkun, you get the melee tree. Focusing them on magic is just not worth it. As for the special skill tree for Legendary Lords, here's what I would say. You spend 7 points. You spend points until level 7. So that's 2 points here with 3 more. So you're going to be spending what? 5 points. And then you stop. Or 6 points, and then you stop and you wait until you unlock the top tree. I wish that top tree could be unlocked earlier. Like if the top tree for Legendary Lord could be unlocked on level 5, it would be great. Because in pretty much every campaign I play, I'm just between level 7 and 12 or 10, 7 and 10. I'm just not spending points on my Legendary Lord. It's just a bit annoying because I'm saving points to just unlock a lot of the stuff over here. Though I haven't unlocked everything. For instance, I haven't unlocked greater Tomb Guard capacity. But then again, I have a great deal of Tomb Guard capacity already. And there's, I don't think... Oh, Vanguard deployment for skeletal chariots. It's like, I'm not using chariots, so that's a bit meaningless. And that's the only difference there. But otherwise, you generally want to unlock the special skill tree for your Legendary Lord or Lords if you're using a mod to be able to get access to more of them. Just a point for Cetra, I find the War Sphinx to generally be better than the Chariot of the Gods. Not that the Chariot is useless, far from it, but I just find it better to choose them out. Just something worth mentioning, because the War Sphinx is going to be unlocked generally earlier than the Chariots, or about the same time, and Cetra will prefer to go to on the Chariot by default. Switch to War Sphinx, especially for sieges. Chariot can be better in open field battles, but yeah, generally with Legendary Lords, you want to get the special skill tree. For her, for instance, I've unlocked some things in her army. Maybe I should respect her. There's a mod for that to get all this, but some Legendary Lord skills are not necessarily worth it. For her, the only one that actually is worth it would be the embodiment here. Outside of that, it's not particularly great. Frenzy can be nice, all the same though, but for her, only the first 2, I would say. Well, 3 of them are worth it. It depends on the lord, depends on the skill. Now, hero-wise, you get 3 hero choices. You get Necrotects, you get Tomb Princes, and you get Lich Priests. Lich Priests, just to show you recruitment options, Lich Priests come in 3 variety. Shadow, but you need to unlock a Book of Nagash for that. Shadow at the bottom, just going from the bottom to the top. Shadow, Nehekara, Light, and Death. I think Death and Shadows are generally the best, though there are certainly some benefits for Nehekara and Light. Nehekara is, like, Light and Nehekara are more support magic skills. Shadows and Death are more direct damage skills if you do have them. So for instance, here I have a Lich Priest of Death. I mean, it does provide buffs and debuffs and all that, but really you're getting the Purple Sun and you're getting the Fate skills. Those are some of the things that are more important. I'd say when it comes to the choices of Lich Priests, you should always consider the traits that they have, not just that you like a particular magic skill tree. For instance, he would give me 2 Canopic Jars and recruit rank for my army. So if I'm getting a new lord for an army, this guy might be useful, at least on a temporary level, more so than a Shadow one. Though Shadow is generally the best choice because it does the most damage, it's the most useful in combat, but you have to unlock it through a Book of Nagash, the 6th Book of Nagash specifically. Lich Priests, beyond that, they give you replenishment. So beyond the fact that they give you better choices of magic, right? You don't want to skill in magic on your legendary lords, and you won't have it on regular lords. So they're giving you access to magic, which is a great deal of power, so they're worth it on that alone. Then they give you a lot of replenishment, and they have these free skills. They don't have to choose, they can get all of them. So the first one gives you a Lord Recruit rank, hero, and Recruit rank +2 in the Heroes Army. Research rate 2%. Research rate is a pretty big deal to have for the Tomb Kings. And then ambush success chance, hero action. That's actually a pretty useless one. I'm not sure exactly why I spent it there, but generally the first two are great. The Mortuary Cultist, less so, but it can be useful if you're dealing with a lot of heroes. Though you're not really going to ambush a lot with Tomb Kings from my experience. So yeah, just a waste of point in that respect. Then you have Tomb Princes and Necrotechs. Both Necrotechs and Tomb Princes are melee heroes, really. Though they serve very different purposes in both campaign and in battle. Between the two of them, the Tomb Princes are going to do better in battle, but the Necrotechs are going to be doing far better on the campaign. Why is that? Well, first off, they give you increased mobility of 15%. Well, that's an additional 15%. How much is it in total? If I try and find it, it's not going to say it over here. Maybe it says it in the army itself. Hold on. 25% campaign movement. So Necrotechs will allow you to move around the campaign map much, much faster. And with the Tomb Kings, you do have to choose which heroes you're going to get. Why do I mean by that? Because the way they increase capacity for heroes is pretty different than the vast majority of other races. The way you increase capacity, there's two ways to do it, or three ways. One is legendary lord skills for some legendary lords. For instance, I've got Archon the Black here. If you're playing him, he's got the skill, the Lich King, which gives you 2 Lich Priest capacity. So he has that kind of capacity. Does Khalida have anything? I don't believe she does, no. So she doesn't have it. I don't believe Cetra has it. Either way, Archon and Katep do have Lich Priest capacity. But otherwise, outside of legendary lord skills or faction effects with Katep, the way you increase it is either through research. So you have, for every dynasty in the research tree, you have the capacity to increase hero capacity, but you have to spend money in some of them, or jars, or the second way to increase capacity is for the Mortuary Cult, which is going to take jars in general. I'll talk about the research tree and all that, but point is, you are going to have to choose what's important for you. Through the Mortuary Cult, you have to get some resources and spend a lot of jars, and I believe the cost of this does increase if I'm not mistaken. But even if it stays the same, it's like you're not going to have jars to unlock everything. So I would say, like, if you're going to prioritize anything hero-wise, prioritize the Necrotechs for the simple reason. They're giving you a lot of mobility, and beyond that, they have other very significant advantages. They're not the greatest melee fighters. The Tomb Prince will do better, and I can recruit them, etc., for higher rank. But here's the thing. They have a melee skill tree, okay, that's basically the same. When it comes to leveling heroes, here's what you should do. If it's a magic hero, like if it's a Lich Priest, you get, whenever you can, you get points in replenish, then you spend points in magic. When you can unlock the special skill tree, you spend points in that. Otherwise, you're just basically when you have it available, you unlock either a special skill tree or replenish troops. The other actions don't matter, with the exception of Canopic Jars. You might even want to prioritize getting Canopic Jars over real battle skills, because you're going to need a lot of Canopic Jars if you're playing the Tomb Kings. And this applies to all heroes. It's the same principle applies to all heroes. Like, you get special skills when they're available, because you do need certain levels, and some of them are exclusive, like this line as you choose. But you get the melee skill most of the time. You get the special skills when they're available, like mobility, Canopic Jars, all that. When they do become available, special skills like this skill line, it will take some levels to get to, and then when it is available, this particular skill line. Now, here's the thing you need to know about Necrotechs and why they're so important. for Tomb Kings if you're playing them. More important, far more important than Tomb Princes. You've got that increased mobility, as I've mentioned. You've got an ability to restore, to heal a unit in combat, though there's other ways of healing. You can affect all allies with armor and missile resistance. In range, you can give armor piercing and melee attack. All of that is great. But then you've got the inscription of repair skill line. There's only a handful of skills, but basically, the first one gives you casualty replenishment for construct units. And then you choose what capacity for construct units, basically what the units you want to increase capacity for. The first one gives you stalkers, knights, and knights with halberds. It's okay, but Nehakara cavalry isn't the best in the world. Tomb scorpions are pretty decent, 2 capacity for that, or more likely Ushapti. So you get 1 capacity for regular Ushapti and 1 capacity for great bows. Just to understand, I have several, I'm at capacity with necrotects, and I believe I've gotten a lot of capacity for Ushaptis, and the overall capacity I have at turn 74 for my Ushaptis, and I've been constructing structures everywhere, because a structure will only give you, what, 1 capacity if I'm not mistaken? So it will be 1 capacity for each. Even then, with that, all that, I only have capacity for 19 regular Ushaptis and 15 Ushaptis with great bow. So generally out of these choices, the Ushapti choice is the best out of all of them. Unless you want to use a lot of Tomb Scorpions, I would not increase the capacity of Knights. I think Ushaptis are much better. And the thing about cavalry, Stalkers, or Knights, because that's basically the role they fill, is like they're situational. Ushapti are great in every situation. Sieges, open field battles, all that doesn't matter. So Ushapti is pretty much the skill of Sentinels that you want to get. Master Builder, obviously just constructing things faster and cheaper. You have to pick that. Pick it the moment it becomes available. And then the final skill tree, this is where you have a genuine choice. What do you want to focus on? What units are you're going to go for? And I would decide at one point in my campaign which unit do I want to go for. Now, I personally find the War Sphinxes to be useful, though I would certainly not dismiss the Hierarchian. Like here, it's a genuine choice. Over here, when it comes to these units, I would say the Ushapti one is the much better choice. I mean, it's 2 capacity for whatever unit, or 1 capacity for the Knights and Stalkers each. So that's 3 capacity total. 2 for Scorpions, and 1 for Ushapti, and 1 for Ushapti Greybow, so 2 there. I do feel the Ushapti one is the much better choice, especially the Greybow one. Like, the regular Ushapti, not so important, but the Greybow one, like, Greybows, they're really powerful ranged units, and that's actually something that you do lack if you're playing the Tomb Kings, because you don't have great range units, unless we're talking about Ushapti. Stalkers are close range. And they're not really a dedicated range. Ushapti Greybows are very powerful range. And then, yeah, War Sphinxes, War Sphinxes, Necro Sphinxes, or Hierarchians. I do find the War Sphinxes to be overall my favorite choice. And that's why I think, like, just having a hero that increases that capacity is something you should focus on. And then Tomb Princes, just a melee hero. They get training. It's important, but not as important as replenishment or movement range. It's certainly not as important, nowhere near as important as increasing unit capacity without requiring structures. And then you have the melee skill line. With the melee skill line, here's what I'm going to say. Always get hard to hit. Whenever it's available, get hard to hit. So what you do here is you'd spend 1 point in Will, 3 points in hard to hit, 1 point in Blade Master, and that will unlock Tomb Strike. After that, you get armor. You get armor, and then you start unlocking everything else, basically, like Embalmed and Elixir, whenever that's available. Missile resistance, though, depends on what you're fighting, because you may not be fighting a lot of melee factions. But yeah, Embalmed can be great. If we're looking at the Lich Priest, they have Trapped Soul. That's actually pretty great, because it causes terror. So don't dismiss that. That can be really good for them. And if we look at the Necrotects, they have Trapped Soul as well. Like, Ceremonial Bandages are not too critical until you start encountering heavy range factions. Like, Zetra is heading to Wolf One, just to give you an idea, because there's a Book of Nagash over there. I mean, I'm going to deal with Claw and then head over to Wolf One with him and Caligda to get the books there. And going to pick a fight with the High Elves. But yeah, that's how you level up your heroes. And some of the things you should prioritize increasing necrotech capacity over anything else. Lich Priests are great for the magic, Tomb Priests are good melee fighters, but just getting that unit capacity is actually quite important, because it ties into how you should play the Tomb Kings.